Bad boys, bad boys.
So, Bad Boys Ride or Die released. Now, I want to hand this over to Tom briefly, so you should probably say on the camera, because I'd like his opinion on Bad Boys. He watched it. So I'd like your opinion on that, I guess. What you thought of it? Did you like it? And then do you feel like the box office was justified? Is it good? Is it bad? And we'll kind of talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Am I the only one who saw it? You didn't see it, Nate?
Yep. No, I honestly, I don't really care for Bad Boys. To be honestly, it's yeah, it's not been something I've been massively keen on. They're fine. They're kind of like popcorn flick. It's like I'll watch it on TV, basically. You know, if it's on, I'll watch it on TV. But to go to the theater to watch it, not really what I would want to do.
Wow. So mark the calendar. I've seen something that nobody else has here on the panel. But yeah, no, I went Thursday night. I actually enjoyed the last one. I wasn't as big of a fan of the second one just because that one felt like every Michael Bayism shoved into 2.5 hours that you could get. And it was 2.5 hours because that's another Michael Bayism. Because I thought the first film was brilliant, a lot of fun. And so yeah, I went into the third one with very low expectations. And I think the third film is a good example of where sometimes a franchise needs to be saved from its creator or a director. Because Bilal and Adil or Adele or however you say their names, the two guys, they did a brilliant job with Bad Boys for Life. I thought it was amazing, really well done film. Considering it had been almost 20 years since the last film, they did a really good job of getting you back into the world that these guys have been living in for the last 2 decades. And then this one picks up right where that one kind of left off. And I'm still kind of on the fence on which one's better because they're both so good. In fact, this one's funnier. Part 4 is a lot funnier. Had a lot more fun with it. They're definitely in that Lethal Weapon kind of vibe now with, it's a family event kind of thing. I had a lot of fun. It's not woke. In fact, on my critic list review, I had to kind of point out that it leans a little into the right instead of the left because of a few reasons. I don't want to get into too much of it because I don't want to spoil anything.
Don't.
But I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'll gladly answer. But yeah.
Well, so you liked it then, basically. You had a good time with it.
Yeah.
Is it worth going to see in the theater? That's the main question I think most people would probably
ask.
I
saw it on DLX with Dolby Atmos, and I thought it was a lot of fun to see in theater. And I've seen a lot. See, I went to an early showing, so there wasn't that many people there. But now I've talked to a few other people who went to more full screenings, and the audience seems really into it. And I know of at least one or two specific scenes that got people either cheering or out of their seats, like, and we've been calling that the Second Amendment scene. So yeah.
So you think you think it's worth the price of admission, even though admission's really expensive now? Yeah, you'd recommend it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to necessarily see it on an IMAX or whatever, but it is very well shot. That's the other thing is those guys, they are really experimental in what they're trying to do with visuals and stuff. And there's a lot of cool stuff. They did some of it in Bad Boys for Life, and then they take it even further in this one. I know some of you may have seen the thing out there where they do the first person shooter thing where Will actually has like the camera attached to him and then he'll spin it around and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff is really cool. And they get really inventive with some of the camera angles and just, you can tell they're having a lot of fun. Right. And every scene that we get into with as far as the action sequences and the shootouts and all that, they're a lot of fun and they're very well thought out. I didn't feel like I was confused at any time on who was doing what, where, or anything like that. Like we get a lot of times with some of these quick cut, jangly action movies anymore. Felt very smooth and the music was fine. I mean, Will was great. Martin stole the show. If you're a fan of the secondary characters, Reggie really gets a chance to shine. That would be Martin Lawrence's character's son-in-law in the last two here. So yeah, no, it's a really well done film, and I can't recommend it enough. And the box office is showing if you put movies out there that people like and word of mouth gets out there that it's pretty good, people will go see them. Yeah, unlike other ones.
Well, well, no, good. Thank you for that. So, I mean, let's talk about the box office then. So, $105 million global. What are we saying with respect? What was the budget for this movie? Do we know?
I've heard a few different ones. I've heard 90. I've heard 100, somewhere in there. But even still, that's pretty much in line with the last one. And Being in it
Well, the last
Sony, they would have pre-sold it to Netflix anyway. But yeah,
Yeah, so the thing, yeah, I mean, that's what I said in my, so I do my sort of Monday, box office roundup thing, and I said the thing about this, although this is far away from making its production budget back, it's a good $100 million away from making its production budget back if it's like a 90 or $100 million budget. And it had a pretty extensive marketing campaign, but the thing about this is that it doesn't need, it's not heavily reliant on the movie theaters. It's not actually. It's the secondary markets where this movie would have already made like quite a lot of cash flow because Sony is smart. They sell stuff off, so they're readily available, just selling it away to other companies because they don't have their own streaming platform. They've won the streaming wars. Right? They are the winners because they're just selling stuff away. So yeah, I mean, it did $105 million global opening. The last movie had legs. So do we think that this one's going to have legs? I mean, this is all speculation and stuff like this, but the last one had relative legs, didn't it?
yeah, and in fact, it was the biggest movie of 2020 mainly because things got shut down. I mean, there could have been a couple other movies that would have come out to maybe challenge it, but I mean, the last one did really well. It did like what 400 and some million. Culture, help me out here.
Yeah, that was
So I mean, if this movie does even close to that, that's a huge win for Sony. Because yeah, $100 million for this is a pretty good budget. You got two
Yeah.
big stars, a lot of action sequences, a lot of physical action sequences. You can tell too. But yeah, no, this movie has at this point it has to fall off a cliff to basically
Yeah.
lose money, wouldn't you say, Culture? Because I mean,
I-
there's
it-
nothing really coming up for competition until probably Deadpool.
Yeah, this one. If you're a guy and you want to go see a movie, and word of mouth on this is giving it a lot of love. Your review on Criticlist was very good on criticlist.com. Well
Yeah,
done.
I didn't even point out like it is a very strong family,
Yeah.
pro male, pro son, pro
Yeah.
father message to it, and yeah,
Yeah, and again, I mean, as you pointed out, Tom, I mean, this was only $100 million. Bad Boys for Life was 90 million. Bad Boys for Life ended its run at a very weird box office timing with 424 million global.
Good.
So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, so on a $90 million budget, it made money. This film's going to already get into the making money, category here pretty quick. I have a feeling by the time we get to week 3, as long as it doesn't follow the path of a couple of the other recent ones that looked like they started strong, I think
True.
this should actually do well. Whether or not it has legs to get it to July, I don't know, but so far, believe it or not, we're 11 days in. This thing had an opening weekend that was, a lot of movies would kill for. 40 million to start, not bad. So I have a feeling that, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're going to see this one perform as well, if not better, than the last movie, and it's a similar budget, so profit's coming. And you're right,
Yeah,
by the way, on the streaming war, Mr. H. Anybody who didn't participate won.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, literally anyone. Well, so to move on to the next element of this, which is important, Israel R has actually super chatted $5 over on Streamlabs. So thank you so much. It says, "Hello, gents. Since Bad Boys made some money, do you think Will Smith is on the rebound in culture?" And that's this next bit that I wanted to discuss is that, it's all tied in with the same kind of topic as Bad Boys. It's Will Smith. Right. He is the lead. I think this is an interesting, element of the discussion. Is he on the rebound? Will Smith incites fan crazy at Cinemark after sneaking into Bad Boys Ride or Die screening. I mean, this was obviously staged. It's a PR stunt. We understand that. But it has gotten people talking about it, and I mean, the evidence is there. People really like to see Will Smith. Is it that the average Joe just doesn't really care about the slap? I think that is probably the case.
Actually, I think Tom would be another go-to for this one because I think with his in-theater experience, it would give us kind of an idea of what it looked like.
Yeah, well, actually, my in-theater experience was not indicative of what other people had. There were literally 2 other guys with me in the theater.
Yeah. Oh,
and that's it. But I went to the earliest showing I could, and after that, I've talked to several people that have seen it in, like I said, mostly full, if not full packed theaters, and the audience was into it. In fact, Mephisto, I don't know if he's in the chat or not, he flat out told me, like, where he's at, the theater, I think, got up and cheered and freaked
Wow.
out during what I called the Second Amendment scene. And as far as the slap
Wow.
goes, yeah, I think that it didn't matter or resonate as much with people as it did with our community and like the YouTube and the entertainment media sphere. Like, I think most people don't give a shit, especially when we're here, 2 weeks out from just seeing a video of Diddy kicking the shit out of what's her face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
true.
kind of hard. It's kind of hard to sit there and hold Will to a standard like that when you see stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, who cares anymore? Right. Like it was a slap. And I guess rumor was they did offer Chris Rock some kind of cameo in the film to play off of the slap, and he turned it down. But there is a scene in the movie that does deal with it, but it works in a way like most people didn't even notice it until I brought it up afterwards. And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because the movie does a really good job of humbling Will, and you could tell a lot of it is his way of saying, I'm sorry, I'm not this bad guy that people think I am, and all that kind of stuff. That is a big thing that resonates through the film, but it works for the movie because the events that happen in the movie actually flip the roles of Martin and Will. Okay, so like normally, Will's character, Mike Lowry, is the more, gung-ho, maverick type, bulletproof, all that kind of stuff. Well, between the stuff that happened in the last movie and the stuff that happens in the beginning of this movie, they flipped roles, and now Will is the more neurotic, fatherly type, worried about everything. And they actually work it into the story where he keeps having these panic attacks. And then and Martin, on the other hand, his character is like freewheeling, ready to go. He thinks he's bulletproof now, so he's acting more like Mike Lowry. They found a way in the story to kind of flip the roles on the two because of how the story kicks off, and they do a really good job with it. Like I said, it has a very Lethal Weapon type vibe now. They've gotten to that point where they've clearly settled in comfortably to these characters. All the humor comes out of the family elements, the character moments and stuff like that. It's really well played. There's a lot of big belly laughs in this movie. Like, me and the other two guys were laughing. I can't imagine what it'd be like sitting in a theater with all the laughs. You almost might have to go see it twice just to catch some of the stuff you missed. But I mean, it's not like wall to wall humor, but like Martin really, really steals the show in this one. Like, if you love Martin Lawrence's humor, you will like this.
All right. Well, interesting. So yeah, it does seem that Will Smith has sort of evaded that. Then I think that will make sense as to why they were trying to promote I Am Legend sequel on the sort of press tour rounds for this movie, trying to test the waters and see. Sounds about right. Doug VA Loves Horror has also super chat $3 over on Streamlabs about Bad Boys. Says, I liked the first Bad Boys. Second one was full Michael Bay, so hated it. Didn't see the third or fourth one. I don't have interest anymore. Seems to be generic action comedy I've seen many times before. Well, look, I've not seen them, but I think I think we all have a franchise where they have become like that, but you tend to forgive it because it is what it is and you just enjoy it as is anyway. Which it sounds like you sort of had a bad experience with the second one and sort of checked out, which is perfectly understandable. But I think we all have some of those franchises that are our guilty pleasures of just sort of enjoying them regardless of them becoming cliche and generic as is.
It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I get that. Like, even things in this film and the third film have retroactively made 2 go up, in my opinion, right? Like they call back to or use things from those movies, from that movie, to make it more important in a lot of ways. Because the problem with part 2 is just that it's a lot of events happening and they feel like action set pieces that don't really go anywhere, right? Like the story is really thin and they kind of know who they're after from the start. So it's kind of like, unlike the first one and the other sequels to where there's a mystery kind of to it, that one there isn't as much of a mystery, and it's just kind of just Michael Bayism after I was waiting for a Transformer to show up at one point. That's what it felt like in Bad Boys 2. Like, you're like, okay, what's next? A Transformer going to show up here or something? Like, Jesus. Like they're it's just a little too over the top. These two have been more grounded. These guys treat the characters like they're not as bulletproof as Michael Bay would have.
No, that makes sense. Well, thank you so much for your insight there, Tom, and thank you everyone for joining in. We will shuffle on a little bit now.